people will come in and say, oh yeah, well I can squat X amount or bench press this or whatever, and throw out sort of different numbers. But yes, you might be able to move that load, but actually how safely and how efficiently are you moving that weight? Or when it comes to the more complex movements, yes, you can do them, but you're probably setting yourself up for injury, and you're also not moving in an efficient way.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Coffee Talks. If you've been here before, you know who we are. This is Cara, I'm Michael. We are here to chat all things training, performance, nutrition, lifestyle, and we hope that through these conversations you will elevate your own performance. So before we dive into today's episode, because you've probably seen the title and we know why you're here, two really important things. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. It helps us grow. It helps us produce more content like this. And the second thing is, you guys have been absolutely loving the weekly mainstay. It's our weekly newsletter that goes out on a Friday morning. It kind of wraps up what we've been thinking about during the week, anything we've been reading, or any nutrition stuff that we kind of want to pass on to you. It is, honestly, it's all of our best bits. So if you haven't subscribed to that yet, go to our website, themainstaymovement.co.uk, and leave your email address, hit subscribe, and you will be added to that group. Also on the website, you'll get the latest Coffee Talks episodes. You'll get all of our ebooks, stuff about training, lots of really good content. So check that website out, and pass it on as well. There we go.
On with the good stuff.
On with the good stuff.
Okay, so today's episode is 5 things that every coach wants you to know. So we're going to go through our top 5, and do you want to kick us off with the very first one?
Absolutely. So I've obviously been coaching for over 10 years now, and so I think we have a pretty good understanding of client behaviors and that sort of thing. So the first thing is massive for me. Consistency is key. A lot of people, when they start training, they want fast results, they want super duper transformations, and that's why these things sell, right? Yeah. But the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. Cara's been reading a book recently called Winning by Tim Grover, and he kind of follows up that Rome wasn't built in a day analogy with something pretty cool. Do you want to?
Yeah, so there's kind of a second part to that. No, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it was built every single day for thousands and thousands of days. So showing up every day is important, and you won't see the little changes until further down the line whenever you're looking back. So day to day it looks like nothing's changing, but when you look back, everything's different.
Class. I don't know, I've certainly been victim to that in my own kind of training and stuff, where you're constantly looking in the mirror, have I changed, or jumping on the scales every single day. Don't do that stuff.
And I think if you have a coach who you're going to, and that's all they're pushing in terms of their messaging, then I think you maybe need to have a look at that and actually assess, are they the right coach for you? Because if you go to them and say, I want to look like X in a certain amount of time, and you're limiting that, then they should probably be turning around to you and saying, is that really the only reason why you want to train and why you want to get better? Think of all the other amazing benefits that you can get from training and from exercise, not just what you look like in the mirror.
Yeah, class. So here's another spin to that. Let's say we're training for strength. Okay. Obviously we're not going to see super strength increases day to day. So how often do you think, how often do you think a person should test, that sort of thing?
Oof. Obviously, like training age and everything like that will come into it. There's loads of different factors, but I'm probably going to say like a minimum of 8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah, amazing. So there you go. You're looking at 2 to 3 months that you got to keep showing up every single day, following your program, doing all that stuff. And
let's face it, the longer actually you're training, probably the less often you'll see big gains and big differences. So that can become a little bit disheartening, whereas at the start, particularly if you're someone who's at a very low training age, very quickly things will start to change and it looks amazing. So then don't be discouraged whenever it doesn't happen quite as often.
Amazing. Number 2, nutrition matters way more than you think. So often we kind of look at nutrition and like, especially that kind of like calories or macros thing is, calories in, calories out, like, it's so much more than that. It's not just, your fuel for training, but it's also your ability to recover as well, and so much more than that. So we gotta take our nutrition seriously, and not just like, on a Monday to Friday. This is something we talk about all the time. It's not just like a weekday thing. Like, progress stops at no point. So you gotta track your food, you gotta manage your food, you gotta keep repeating good patterns every single day, long term, same as your training.
Yeah, and it also doesn't mean like that nutrition and your food is kind of just like your excuse for training is that you eat more, or you can eat the stuff that you want. You've got to have like a balanced approach whenever it comes to food, and looking at it through that lens of it being your fuel and something that you need, rather than just eating because like it's a reward, or not eating as a punishment for not having trained. Amazing.
The third thing is something that it's your pride and joy. This is something that Cara talks about loads. The third thing that we want you to know is that you should master the basics. So take it away.
Yeah, and again, it comes from a place of having coached in a CrossFit gym, and I think it's quite a theme within all CrossFit gyms where often you see people coming in, and because they've maybe had a background of training or sport and things like that, they automatically assume that they can come in like up here, whereas everybody's got to start from the bottom and build up. People will come in and say, oh yeah, well I can squat X amount or bench press this or whatever, and throw out sort of different numbers. But yes, you might be able to move that load, but actually how safely and how efficiently are you moving that weight? Or when it comes to the more complex movements, yes, you can do them, but you're probably setting yourself up for injury, and you're also not moving in an efficient way, that gets you to get work done in a shorter space of time, which is the goal of kind of how you get higher intensity out of workouts. So that's kind of my experience from kind of coaching in a CrossFit space. But also as an athlete as well, coming from that point of view of whenever you get to a certain point and you've neglected something for a while, it's very hard to go back and untrain those bad habits and kind of retrain new ones. And I think whenever you don't master the basics, then you'll plateau so much quicker. And you'll not see the progress that you want to see because you go straight up to here, but you haven't figured out what the basic movement pattern is, so then you can't sort of break through that barrier to get to the next level. Amazing.
And that's a point, like mastering the basics is it's not just a training thing, but it's a life thing as well. When you finish school and you go to university, you kind of just build on the foundations that have been laid in your education, or like you take up a new sport. You don't expect to be playing for like the A team straight away. You got to start at your level and just build. So That is, mastering the basics is not just a training thing, not just a nutrition thing, but it kind of goes across the board of life as well. So that was number 3. Number 4 is understanding and learning and not just being a robot. There is absolutely nothing worse, as a coach. Let's say you're taking a one-to-one session and all you do is tell your client do X, do Y, do Z, and they just do it.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, we're programming because, we're programming in a certain way because we know where the person is at and we know where we want to get them to or where they want to be. We're programming and progressing their training and stuff. But if you don't ask questions, if you don't try and understand what you're doing, how do you expect to, grow yourself? But also on the reverse of that, ask the coach a question because it also helps the coach grow too. So kind of just going through the motions of training and never really understanding it and never really learning anything for yourself, you're only going to get so far.
It's only going to be enjoyable for a little while as well. It's so much more enjoyable whenever you understand why something's being programmed, like what certain movements are there to achieve, and like especially there's nothing worse as well when someone comes to you and is like, what should I be feeling in this movement? Like where should I feel this?
Yeah.
And they're not actually sure what sort of like muscles they're trying to engage, like what they should be feeling, because then you know that they're not doing the movement right. Whereas if they understood like what we're trying to hit, like what we're trying to achieve through it, then they're sort of starting to think like, okay, if I'm not feeling that, then there must be something I'm doing wrong.
Yeah.
Not just like mindlessly moving through it. But then it makes you become so much more aware of your own body, and then that's how you get greater results.
Yeah, one of the things that we always say is move with intent.
Yeah.
So like you're not just practicing a movement for the sake of it because it's written on your program or because someone's told you to do it. You're actually doing it to feel it, to gain the benefit and all that sort of thing. So understanding your program, understanding what you're doing, asking questions, learning is one of the most important things you'll ever do when it comes to training. And it's one of those things like being coached is so important. Like you should always get better when you're being coached, right? But there'll be points in your life where maybe you can't afford a coach, or maybe you're just you're away with work or like whatever it is, and you've got to be the coach. So if you don't understand what you're doing, you don't know how to kind of like program, or you don't know just what you're at, how do you expect to kind of keep progressing? So that's massive. Number 5 is it's an interesting one. It's listening to your body. It's kind of these all kind of follow a similar pattern. We were chatting about this. I said to Cara, like, programming isn't always perfect, and Cara was like, well, what do you mean? Because as coaches, like, we do our absolute best to write a program that'll get you from A to B, and all those kind of actionable steps. But the reality is, whenever we take into account like stress from work, or like pressures from your family, or like maybe a day of I guess eating that wasn't exactly perfect, maybe you'll wake up one day and just not be ready to complete the full program. So you got to understand as well, and it's goes back to that like mastering the basics. This is similar as well. Like you need to know what kind of like a normal day feels like. You need to know that just because you're sore doesn't mean you're injured.
Yeah.
All that sort of thing. So listening to your body and learning your body is massive.
Yeah, this is definitely a tough one for me, and that I have often struggled with and not done very well. But I think that is maybe coming from a more elite environment where you kind of just have to suck it up and just accept sometimes that you're going to be sore and tired, but sometimes the lines can become very blurred and you don't know when you should continue to push through, and when you should just say, okay, maybe I need to stop right now. But I mean, ultimately you've got to you've got to just sit down and be realistic with yourself and not beat yourself up if you can't make every session and can't do everything. Especially if you're like someone who just goes to the gym for like longevity, you know, to enjoy themselves and to feel better about themselves and get more out of life and just become stronger. I mean, you're not training to, you know, do an Ironman or go to the next Olympics or anything like that. Like those sorts of people have to push the envelope a little bit more, almost a breaking point.
Yeah.
Whereas 95% of people don't have to do that.
I look, the reality is as well, even if you're competing at that elite level, you know, some days just aren't your day. You know, and you know, I've seen it with like Olympic weightlifters, for example, where, you know, it'll maybe come to testing week and, you know, they've worked so hard to kind of build their lifts, build their numbers, all this sort of thing. And when it comes to testing week, you know, they're not PBing, they're not even coming close to what they hit in their last testing block. And you know what, sometimes that's just life. So it's a case of, all right, that's a marker, that's how I feel right now, and then we move forward, we build again. So those are our top 5: consistency, nutrition, mastering the basics, understanding and learning and listening to your body. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Let us know in the comments if there's anything else that you want to know, and we'll see you on the next episode.
See you then.